Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 290, Handling Office Politics. Let's just rip the band-aid off, shall we? Ready? Office politics is not optional. If you're employed, you're already engaged in political manoeuvrings whether you like it or not. And it's actually ridiculously naive to think or say, I don't do politics. In fact, that line will probably do more harm to your career trajectory than you might imagine. So the only real choice is, how do you do politics? I'm steering clear of the term play here, as one of the ways of doing politics is in a game-playing way. But that'll come back to bite you sooner or later. And I've found that most introverts I work with prefer to avoid psychological games. So because politics are unavoidable, the only other way of doing them is with integrity. That means doing and saying the right things rather than things that might get you brownie points at the expense of others. Many of we particularly observant introverts will notice the politicking all around us, including who the pawns are and who the key players are. And honestly, I don't know anyone who wakes up in the morning and, as they look in the mirror, gleefully declares, "Ooh, it's political shenanigans day today." Unless, of course, they're either a real, fully paid-up politician, a psychopath or a narcissist. But let's be fair, the last two are unlikely to see that what they're doing is unethical. The paid ones, the ones we voted for or not, well, it seems being unethical but deploying great spin is part of their job description. But don't get me started on that. So even for the average Joe like you and me, working in the corporate space, politics is everywhere and there's no getting away from it. So this is a case of turning bravely to face it with your protective armour of integrity polished to a high shine. Maybe that'll blind the blighters, so at least you'll have some thinking time before you need to respond. And because of the effort and energy that it takes to step onto the court of the political arena, many introverts would rather distance themselves by staying in the stands and observing from afar. And I get it. In fact, I used to do the same myself until I was wised up on the Cranfield Women in Leadership course, where I got to understand what was really going on. And that's part of what I'm sharing with you during this episode. We know that politics is a given in organisations and other people systems come to that. But what I really want to talk about is what you can do as an introvert to stop getting caught up in the game. If I were to ask you right now to say a quick eye or a hands up if you're a people pleaser, recovering or active, if you avoid conflict wherever possible, and might be described as a I just want to do a good job type, maybe you've thought opting out of politics was the mature, sensible, even noble thing to do. Spoiler alert, it's not, because silence isn't seen as wisdom. Silence is seen as agreement and even judged as naivety, which means, cue the trumpets, you're now silently standing behind behaviours that probably make you wretch. Integrity demands something else of us. I imagine you've felt this or something like it before. You walk out of a meeting frustrated as hell because your idea didn't get a fair hearing. And you're not the only one, because Mr. Gobelot, your workplace nemesis, made sure the decision was already stitched up before it really got discussed. Or maybe you've been in a client meeting, and even though you were the authority in the room, you were introduced as not much more than a bag carrier. And also Mr. Gobelot could puff his chest out with self-importance and take credit for your work. I've experienced that. And his name was Ivan. Perhaps you watch the pawns being manoeuvred like a 3D chess game, a Sheldon's special, but you kept your observations to yourself to keep the peace. Then chaos ensues and the casualties fall wounded, but you feel it's too late to speak up now. Next time, you tell yourself, I'll trust my intuition and speak up earlier. Yep, that, my friends, is politics, of the game-playing variety. And the truth is, sitting it out doesn't make you immune, it makes you irrelevant. Here's the harsh truth. When you declare, I don't do politics, you're not opting out, you're choosing to be blind. And while you're covering your eyes or turning away in the far corner of the stands, hoping it will end soon, the game-playing foxes are running amok on the court, free to carve up the territory however they choose. And the donkeys? They're braying loudly like the asses they are. The outcome? Decisions get made without you, your perspective gets ignored, and your influence gone. Is it any wonder that we're overlooked and undervalued? Is it any wonder that introverts... Is it any wonder that introverts who think they're opting out of politics get overlooked and undervalued? Sometimes we really don't help ourselves. Look, I love we introverts and our peace-loving nature, but we're especially guilty of this. We find the game playing fake, manipulative, and exhausting. That's because it is, so we withdraw. But that withdrawal excludes us from the very conversations that shape not just our careers, but the culture we sit in every day. The myth that louder equals better wins again. And worst of all, you're left watching the organisational stage tilt towards the people who climb higher not because they're smarter or more capable, but because they're willing to elbow, spin, or outright manipulate their way to the top. And if that thought makes your stomach turn, good, because that's your integrity knocking, saying, hey, are we going to just sit here and watch, or are we going to show up and do something? Do something it is then. And I accept that this needs a certain level of bravery, which is why I run the Becoming Braver adventure every now and again. And with just a pinch of bravery, and with a mere pinch of bravery, and with just a pinch of bravery and a dollop of integrity, we can all make a difference. Because the good news is that game playing is not the only way to do politics, and certainly not for those introverts intent on flourishing. The alternative, as I've mentioned, is integrity. So do you want some strategic steps to follow? If you do, pin back your shell likes then and be ready to make some notes. Number 1. Focus on the other side of the court. Leave the foxes and the donkeys to their game and shift across to the integrity side of the political arena. Yes, it does exist. Over on this side, we find the sheep who are still learning about the politics of their new team or organisation, and the owls, the wisest of politicians. The owls have taken time to understand who's who in the zoo and formed ethical alliances. Number 2, map your stakeholders. Based on your observations and experience, as opposed to the gossip and grapevine, map out your own image of where the actual power lies in your team or organisation. Hint, it's not always with the ones at the top or the ones with the fancy title. Who has informal influence? Who do the grounded people listen to? Who can you build trusted alliances with? This is how you move from sheep to owl status, by staying on the side of integrity and developing your political awareness. Number 3, build alliances quietly. I strongly suggest you avoid becoming the office show pony or donkey. Wisdom and the ability to influence is built in genuine collaboration, and familiarity grows in the hallway chats. And you'll find out more about people and their frustrations in the coffee queues. So recharge sufficiently to be available when it matters. Number 4, stay values driven. The fox might get the quick win, but at what cost? As the old saying goes, be careful who you step on as you make your way up the ladder. They'll be waiting for you in your trip down. The owl, who does politics wisely and with integrity, is the one who people respect in the long run. They're the leaders who attract followers with integrity. And you know what respect buys you? A career you can live with and sleep through at night. Finally, number 5, use curiosity as your shield. When you see someone pull a manipulative move, don't fight fire with fire. Ask questions. That's interesting. Can you explain your thinking here to help me better understand? Curiosity slows things down, exposes motives, and shows you're politically aware without stooping to dirty tricks. It keeps you on the right side of the court. Those 5 form a solid start to get you out of the stands and on the side of the court where integrity lives. It's naive to ignore politics, so you need to build your awareness. Just think how far an owl's head swivels. It misses nothing. Becoming more owl-like will be one of the things we explore in the Mutineers Mastermind, the members of which are currently being assembled. This is for fellow introverts who are in positions of influence or who have authority or sufficient mutineer sassiness to change their little corner of the world with integrity. The link to find out more is in the show notes, so do check it out. Now, as I conclude this episode, my final message is that politics isn't inherently dirty, sleazy, or underhand. It's just the system of human relationships at work. And you can choose to engage in a way that feels authentic as long as you're building your awareness. Just stay in integrity, stick to your values and principles so you're able to maintain your relevance. When you declare your stance and speak your truth, even if that truth is, I'm not ready to share yet, you reframe silence as strength, not weakness. Sometimes doing politics with integrity sounds like speaking your truth. Other times it looks like naming and upholding your boundary. Either way, you're reclaiming your voice. And that's the point. Staying politically unaware and tight-lipped isn't a strength, but clarity is. So if you're tired of watching the foxes run the show, maybe it's time to get on the court. That's exactly what I built the Frustrated to Flourishing program for, to help introverts step into influence with courage and integrity without pretending to be something they're not. Because the workplace doesn't need more elbows, it needs more owls. And that, my friend, is probably you. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.